Today's daf is Shabbat daf Kavav. We're going to start with an interesting story. Today's daf is sponsored by the Vega Gordon family in Philadelphia in honor of Hadran for helping them to be Kovea Yitim with the daily daf, and by Judy Shapiro, also in honor of Hadran, for making Torah learning so accessible and engaging, and by Ruti Amal for Refuah Shlema to her grandmother and Anna Smirnova. Okay. We're going to start, if you remember, we finished up yesterday with the tsari, which is the sap that comes from the balsam tree. In fact, we posted yesterday, Shuli Mishkin has a realia section in our site. And if you didn't look at it, you can look at it. She has a whole article about Afar Simon, the balsam tree, and different sources about it. So we said that there were two things about it. If you remember, one thing is that it has a beautiful smell. And because of that, there was a concern that people were going to take the oil from there to put on their bodies or use it to smell. And then they would end up being over on the malacha of kiboy, of putting out a fire, because they would make the candle burn shorter. And the second reason they gave was because it's flammable. We don't want people using something that's flammable, that's going to cause a fire. So now, enlightened with the flammableness of this tsali from the balsam tree, we're going to talk. So that was the sap. Now we're going to have a story about the oil, which is also highly flammable. And we're going to have a story about a mother-in-law who doesn't really particularly like her daughter-in-law. Okay, we know that this can happen time to time. Hahi chamata dahava snia lekalata. She really hated her kala. Okay, snia like from snua. Amrala, so what did she tell her? Zil ikshit b'mashchada farsima. Go put on some nice, pretty balsam perfume. Azla ikashit. So she put it on. She listened to her mother-in-law. I don't know why the mother-in-law didn't like her. She actually listened to her. Usually that's the root of the problem. But anyway, ki atat, when she went, Amrala, when she came back, Amrala, zil it shraga. Go light a candle. Azla it shraga. She lit a candle, and because the oil that was on her was highly flammable, in pachbanura va'achalta, she lit up on fire and she got eaten up and killed because of this. Okay, this is a very odd story. To think that the Gemara is telling us stories of mother-in-laws killing their daughters-in-law, what exactly is going on here? So I'll give some possible thoughts that I had about this story. One is that the Gemara likes to bring extreme stories to pass on messages. So number one, it could be very well just trying to tell you this is highly flammable and you'll never forget this story. So, you'll now remember not to light with balsam oil or the sap from the balsam tree or anything connected because it's so highly flammable, which is, I think, the main message in our Gemara. The question is there some other message going on here? And maybe what it's trying to tell us is that sometimes we don't necessarily have the best relationships with our daughters-in-law or mothers-in-law. And maybe the idea is that it's trying to tell us, well, number one, keep it in perspective. Right? You don't have such a bad relationship that you're about to kill each other, right? And the other thing is maybe work on your relationship so that you don't get to the point where one wants to kill the other, and that maybe you should try to improve on things and make things better. So maybe there's two underlying messages here: again, the flammable nature of it, and also the working on relationships. Okay, moving back to other things. Okay, here's a pasuk which is seemingly unconnected. We'll get to the connection in a minute. That in the Galut of Bavel, the first Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. So Nebuzaradan, the Rabbi Tabachim, he was the guy in charge there, right under Nebuchadnezzar. He left some of the impoverished people from the land to be Kormim and Yogvim. Now, the pshat of this pasuk is that they're meant to be working in the kramim, in the vineyards for wine. Now, it doesn't make so much sense that would be the case because the kramim and the yogvim, that's a very easy job. And the idea is he must have left people to do the work because it was the kind of work that he couldn't bring in foreign workers to do. But to work in the fields is something that very common. He could have brought anybody in. He didn't need to leave any people from the Jewish people there. So it must have been specialized jobs that he specifically needed the indigenous people, the people who are indigenous to the land, who would know how to do these things, and therefore they darshan that it's not according to the pshat. By the way, yogvim, they think is yekev, that the gimel and the kuf switch, right? Which sometimes happens. A letter switches here and there. Certain letters switch to each other. So kormim from kerem and yokvim and yegavim kamo yokvim. Those who work in the yekev in the wine press, or where they make wine. So now they say kormim tani Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef explains what are kormim. Elu melaktei afar simon me'en gedi va'ad ramata. These are the people who gather the afar simon from En Gedi to Ramata. I'm not sure where Ramata is. I didn't find any good explanation. But En Gedi we know. And they were the people who, in other words, again, this was a specialized job because it was something unique to the land. And therefore, he needed to leave those people. The second are Elu Yogvim, Elu Tzayadei Chilazon, Misulamot ad Shotzur va'ad Haifa. Okay, these are the people who captured the Chilazon to make the tchelet, right, the snails, from Sulamot of Tzur, that's up in Lebanon, until down to Haifa. And Julie, who's a listener of ours, and she's on the Zoom with us this morning, she told me that there's a place between Tzur and Haifa called Tel Shikmona, and maybe that's one of the places. That's where there's an article about it, which I'll post later today on our site, about the tchelet and ancient things revealed. So look on our site later today, and you'll be able to read up about it. Okay, so now we're back to regular candles, and then we're going to get back to the balsam. So we're taking a break for a minute. And someone also wrote here, Tel Dor, right? So I wanted to mention Chof Dor, by the way, is south of Haifa, but it's not far from it. Okay, so actually when I taught the class in Hebrew before Julie told me about this, I spoke about Chof Dor. Now I have something more accurate because it really is between Tzur and Haifa. So thank you, Julie. But yes, Chof Dor is not far, and that's where also people go for tchelet now. Okay, moving on. So Tanu Rabbanan, we now quote a Braita: Ein malikim betevel tamei bechol ve'ein tzarich lomar b'Shabbat. You can't light with tevel that's impure. What is tevel? Tevel is produce that you haven't yet taken trumot u'maschal. Now, generally, if you haven't taken the trumot u'maschal yet, to give to the Kohanim and the Leviim, the parts that go to them, if you haven't taken them yet, then that's called tevel. This food is forbidden to everybody because, right, even the Kohanim can't eat it or benefit from it because you haven't yet taken the trumot u'maschal. It's forbidden food, basically. So now, it's like eating non-kosher. So you can't light with tevel tamei. So now, what about, we learned already that if the truma becomes impure, what are you allowed to do? You're allowed to burn, you have to burn it, and then you're allowed to benefit from what you're burning. You can use it to cook your food. But here it says, you can't light with tevel tamei, not on a Yom Chol, ve'ein tzarich lomar b'Shabbat, and of course not on Shabbat. Now, why is this? We're going to see, right? Because, again, tevel is forbidden. On the other hand, you might say, once it's impure, well, then maybe it's already permitted, just like the truma is permitted. So they're basically saying, no, we're going to have to see why. Next line in the Braita, Ein malikim b'neft lavan b'chol. You can't light with white nafta, on chol, on a regular day, ve'ein tzarich lomar b'Shabbat. So these two things are not connected at all. They're just two things you can't light with, not during the week and not on Shabbat. So the Gemara says, Bishlama neft lavan mipnei shu'at. Well, neft is flammable, right? It's highly flammable, and that's why we don't light with it. Aval tevel tamei my taima, but what's the reason for tevel tamei? So Amar Kra, va'ani hine natati lecha mishmeret trumotai. This is exactly what we saw the other day. Remember, we saw this yesterday. There's two trumot. B'shtei trumot hakatuv medaber. The pasuk is talking about two trumot here. Echad trumat Torah ve'echad trumat me'ah. Right? It's mentioning both pure and impure. That's where we learned that you can benefit from the impure truma once it's burned. So now they say, wait, if the trumotai refers to both trumat me'ah and trumat Torah, then there must be something that's comparable between the two. We can make what we say a hakesh, or some sort of limud from one to the other. So now they say, Ma trumat Torah en lechaba ela mishat harama ve'elach. Just like trumat Torah, when does the Kohen, when can he benefit from it? Not until the truma is taken. When it's in its previous tevel status and no one's taken trumot u'maschal yet, even though theoretically, that's what, if you look at tevel, you basically say tevel is made up of truma and regular produce, right? And once the owner separates the truma, you now, right, theoretically, so the truma goes to the Kohen, and the maser goes to the Levi, and the rest of it, right, and the other maser, but the rest of it can be eaten by the Israel. So theoretically, a Kohen could actually eat all of it, because Kohen's allowed to eat everything. So maybe you think that the Kohen could eat it before. But no, truma can't be eaten until, right, tevel is like I said, forbidden food, even to a Kohen. So therefore, since no one can benefit until truma is taken, likewise, af truma tme'ah en lechaba ela mishat harama ve'elach. Likewise, with truma tme'ah, meaning tevel, before it's, right, if the tevel became impure, right, it's only going to be allowed to burn, to use the burning for whatever purpose you want, is only mishat harama ve'elach. And that's why you can't light, not during the week and not on Shabbat, with tevel that's tme'ah, because it's forbidden. Just like tevel is forbidden food, it's also forbidden to benefit from. And then if it's tme'ah, what would you do? You'd separate out your truma, and then you'd be able, right, then the truma would have to be burned because it's disqualified. So the truma would be burned, and then you could actually use it. But you can't use it, right? And then you just can't use it on Yom Tov, because you can't burn kodshim on Yom Tov. But you could use it on Shabbat, and you could use it during the week. Okay, we're now at the middle of the page at the two dots, gufa. Now we're going to go back to the statement Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said, and we're going to see that the statement he made about tsari, which is where we started at the end of yesterday's daf, where he said, Ema the kim b'tsari, was the sap of the balsam tree, was said in the context of a bigger braita, and now we're going to read the whole thing. Ema the kim b'tsari, so Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Ema the kim b'tsari. V'chein haya Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Tsari eno ela sraf me'atzei haktaf. Okay, this we say, by the way, in Pita Maktoret. It's funny, both by Mevalikin and Pita Maktoret. So they both relate to this tsari. So now, tsari is sraf that comes out of the etz haktaf, meaning it comes from the balsam tree. We already kind of knew this, because the Gemara knew this, because they knew this line before. So that's what it is. It's sap that comes from the tree. So some people say that this is a disconnected line. In other words, it's just trying to define what tsari is. Doesn't really have any halachic implications. Some people say, no, what he's trying to say is, here's another reason why you can't use it to light candles with. And we're going to see this opinion later, that maybe candles can only be lit on Shabbat from oil that comes from the fruit of the tree and not from the sap of the tree. Okay, and maybe that's why he's telling you this, to tell you there's a third reason why you can't use the sap of a balsam tree, because sap can't be used. It can only be things that we're going to see later on that come from the fruits of the tree. Okay, maybe that's why he's saying this. Rabbi Yishmael Omer, Kol yotzei min ha'etz emad lekingo. Okay, and comes Rabbi Yishmael, and he says this explicitly. Anything that comes out of the tree, meaning not, right, something like the sap, okay, or a material that comes from the tree itself, we don't use for lighting. Okay, it would have to be, again, only from the fruits of the tree. Rabbi Shmuel ben Broka Omer, Ema dekim ela biyotzei min ha'pri. Okay, now this seems to be very similar to what the previous one was. Now the difference is that Rabbi Yishmael says anything that comes from a tree, Ema dekingo, he doesn't say you can't light from anything else. He just says things that come from the tree itself can't be used for lighting. But he doesn't say, I'll give you an example. What might he say would be okay? Well, remember we had the insides of the fish, right? That there was an oil that came from there. So that you could use, because that's not something Yosem and Ha'etz. In other words, he's saying specifically things that come from a tree are limiting. But Rabbi Yishmael ben Broka says, no, the only things one can use for lighting are things that come out from fruits of trees. Okay? Oils that come from fruits of trees and not from any other kind of oil. Okay, so basically he would be limiting, for example, the innards of the fish. That for sure couldn't be used according to Rabbi Yishmael ben Broka. Rabbi Tarfon Omer, Ema dekim ela b'shemen zayit bilvad. And that we saw in our Mishnah also, one can only use olive oil. Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri al Raglav. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri got very upset, and he said about Rabbi Tarfon. He said, right, now think about it. Shemen zayit, you go to the store, it's one of the more expensive oils, right? Much more expensive than canola or, right, other oils. So he got up and he said, Ma yasu anshe Bavel she'en lahem ela shemen shum shemin. What are the Babylonians going to do? They only have the shemen of sesame oil. Uma yasu anshe Madai she'en lahem ela shemen egozim. They only have walnut oil. Uma yasu anshe Alexandria she'en lahem ela shemen snono. They only have the ones that comes from the radishes. Uma yasu anshe Kapotkia she'en lahem lokach velokach ela neft. They only have neft. So basically, he says you're leaving people with no choice. Now notice he's making reference to the opinion of Chachamim in the Mishnah, if you remember. Go back a page to Kafdalad Amud. Chachamim mitirim b'chol hashmanim, and then they list b'shemen shumshimim, b'shemen egozim, b'shemen snono, b'shemen dagim, b'shemen pekuot, b'ichan u'b'nef. So he lists almost all of them, and he says, what are these people going to do? This is the only oil that they have. So you're basically leaving them with no choice. So he's very upset with Rabbi Tarfon. Now remember, we said this yesterday, Rabbi Tarfon was very wealthy. Sometimes wealthy people don't understand what's going on in the Amcha, and they don't realize that these people don't have anything to light them. So he continues to say, Ela ein lecha ela ma she'amru chachamim. Aim of the Kim. Okay, he says we only have the aim of the Kim list that the rabbis have. In other words, don't start limiting it to just Shem and Zayit or even other things. He says we go by what the rabbis said. What they said is no good. The first Mishnah we saw, those are the only problematic ones. Everything else is okay. And then he says, we can even light with the Shem and Dagim and the Itran. Okay, those are the two that he didn't mention. Or maybe a little bit more that he didn't mention, but the list of Chachamim, he adds those also. Okay, you can light with those things. Rabbi Shimon Shazuri Omer, Madakim b'Shemen Pikuot uveneft. Now this is a little bit weird that Rabbi Shimon Shazuri says this because it seems to be what Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says also. So why does he specifically point out these two things? Some people say he's adding, oh, by the way, you forgot to mention those two. So mention them, although he did say neft also, so it's a little bit strange. Some people, Tosfot has the girsa, the opposite girsa. He specifically says, Ein Malikim b'Shemen Pikuot uveneft. And that what he's saying is, I agree with Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri in general, but I'm taking two of them off the list. Okay, those two we don't like. Sumchus omer, kol yotzei min habasar ein madlikim bo, ela b'shemen dagim. Okay, he says, Sumchus says, anything that comes from meat, what would this be? This is the chaylev we talked about in the first Mishnah that already we said was forbidden. You can't light with that, but you can light with shemen dagim. So now the Gemara is going to ask, that's the end of the Breita. Okay, that was the whole long Breita that started with the Tsari, and it went all the way to here. We saw basically there were 7 different people, or 7 different lines mentioned, right? 7 different people mentioned. So now they say, Sumchus hainu Tanakama. Sumchus is the same as Tanakama. Tanakama also says one can light with Shem and Dagim, and one can't light with Chalev. So what's going on here? So Ika benayu de Rabbona Amarav. Exactly as we said yesterday when we had a situation like this, where we basically say, oh, no, that's because there's an opinion, if you remember, that Rabbanit said that if one mixes the forbidden oil with a little bit of oil that's permitted, it's okay. So they're going to say that Sumchus and Tanakama, right, or Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is Tanakama here, the main opinion, and Sumchus basically disagree on that point. But again, as we said yesterday, but it's not clear which one would say what. Very oftentimes we have an Ika benayu, the difference between them is this, and we're able to say, well, he says this and he says that, and that's the difference. Even though they look the same, they're a little bit different. Here, we're basically just kind of saying it's a little bit random, arbitrary. We don't know who says what, but we're assuming that that's the difference of opinion between the two. Again, this is an example of something where we have a Breita, and it's not clear what the pshat of the Breita is. To the Gemara says it must be they're saying something different, and they kind of come up with a creative answer as to what the difference is between them. But especially in a case like this where it says lo Messiah and they can't even figure out who would say what, it's likely there's another explanation, and it's likely the Breita was listing it for some other, it's possible there's some other reason. It's possible Sumchus was mentioned somewhere, or Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri was mentioned somewhere else, and they're both kind of brought in and edited into here, even though they do maybe say the same thing, or maybe there's some other difference between them. But that's what the Gemara concludes. Okay, Tanya, now we're going to have another Breita, and now we're moving off topic a little bit. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Kol yotzei min ha'etz, and this is why we're mentioning it, because we were just talking about things that come out of trees. Okay, so now he's going to say, Kol yotzei min ha'etz, and we're now going to move from lighting candles with them to materials. If you create a cloth, a piece of cloth, okay, we need to know basic laws of Tumah and Tara. So when it comes up in the Psukim about Tumah and Tara, it's mentioned that both when it comes to a sheretz touching something, or Chumat Meit, one of the things in the list, it lists all the possible things that can become Tameh. It says, oh, beged. Okay, a beged can also become susceptible to impurities. So now the question is, what type of material beged? Okay, generally in the Torah, and we're going to see this today, the materials that they had were flax, linen, right? Flax, which they made linen out of, or wool, which came from sheep, right? Or other animals like that, as opposed to things that come from trees. So the only items that came from trees, the general we're talking about is linen. However, there were other materials that they also made from other things from the tree, okay, or other trees. So now the question becomes, are laws of Tumah and Tara applicable to all these materials? And if so, another thing you have to know is that in order for something to become susceptible to impurity, as we've talked about in other things, it has to have a minimum size. If it's not a minimum size, then it's not significant. It's not significant enough, then it can't be susceptible to impurities. So the question is, what's the minimum size? And is this affected by what material we're discussing? So we're going to start, that's my intro. Okay, if you didn't follow all of it, don't worry, we're going to get to it all inside right now. Tanya Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Kol Yotzei Min Ha'etz, Ein Bo Mishum Shalosh Al Shalosh. Okay, what is Shalosh Al Shalosh? Shalosh Al Shalosh is 3 by 3. 3 by 3 what? Okay, now you have to know some grammar to know, because we're going to have Shlosh Al Shloshad versus Shalosh Al Shalosh. Shalosh Al Shalosh is going to refer to etzba'ot, fingers, okay, which basically means the width of your finger, not the length, the longer part, the width of your finger. That's an etzba. A tefach is hand's breadth. Now tefachim are going to be shlosha tefachim and shalosh etzbaot. Okay, so that's the way it's going to work. So shalosh al shalosh is going to be referring to etzbaot, and shlosha al shlosha is going to be referring to tefachim, hand's breadth, which are much bigger. So we start off with the etzbaot. So the smallest beged, and we're going to see this later, so I'll already tell you, the smallest beged that becomes susceptible to impurities is 3 by 3 etzbaot. Okay, so the width of 3 fingers by the width of 3 fingers, because even though normally people don't really use a cloth that size, if you're very poor, you would actually use a cloth that size, right? Imagine, this is good for now, everybody's cleaning up for Pesach, dumping things in their house, right? There's a difference between how many things you would dump if you were rich or you were poor. If you were poor, you're going to save a lot more because you might need it for something. So a cloth that's very small, a poor person will find some use for it, whereas a rich person is going to say, this is useless, I'm throwing this out. Okay, so the measurements for a rich person are shloshat tvachim al shloshat tvachim. The bigger measurement, 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim, which is a lot bigger than 3 fingers by 3 fingers. So he says like this, anything that comes out of a tree and you make something out of it, right, you make a cloth out of it, doesn't have the laws of 3 by 3, meaning it doesn't become tameh at 3 by 3. Umisachachim bo. Now, the schach if you know the laws of schach in a sukkah, it has to be made from something that's not susceptible to, and anything that's susceptible to impurities can't be used for schach. So since this cloth isn't susceptible to impurities, therefore you can use it for schach. Okay, misachachim bo. Chutz mi pishtan. Okay, this is all true other than for linen, meaning linen is, right, items made from flax is susceptible to impurity at the size of 3 by 3. Okay, and that's because, as I said, the poor people would use this, and therefore flax, yes, but not other materials. So Amar Abaye, now we're going to try to understand this better. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, the Tana debei Rabbi Yishmael, amru davar echad. Okay, this is commonly done in the Gemara, where somebody comes along and says, by the way, we have this statement, and we have some other statement someone else said. Sometimes they do it with 5 people, and they say, all these people are really all saying the same thing. Okay, they're all based on the same opinion, the same idea. So Abaye says, what Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar just said, and what Tana debei Rabbi Yishmael said, are really one and the same. So Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar had amaran. This is always the structure. When they bring this, they say, okay, so the first one is the one we just mentioned. Tana debei Rabbi Yishmael ma'hi, but what's the Tana debei Rabbi Yishmael? What source is he referring to? The Tana debei Rabbi Yishmael. There's a brayta from the house of Rabbi Yishmael that says, Ho'il v'ne'emru begadim b'torah stam. Okay, as I mentioned, the word beged appears, but we're talking about susceptible to impurities. The word, it just says a beged. It doesn't say what type of beged. But yet, in one of the mentions of beged, not in impurities, but in one of the laws of beged in a different context, which is, it actually is impurity, but it's a different kind of impurity, it's in the laws of leprosy. There's leprous clothes, if you remember, right? A person could have leprosy, clothing could become leprous clothing, and a house could become leprous. So when it talks about leprous clothing, it actually says, semer ufishtim. It tells you which types of clothes are we talking about. One's made of leather, of wool, and of linen. Okay, this is what I mentioned before, that there is some mention in the Torah of clothing and what kind of clothing, and it's semer ufishtim. So therefore, they say like this, ma lahalan semer ufishtim, just like there, the beged, it says beged, and it says the beged is semer ufishtim. Okay, I'll read you the whole pasuk. It's in Vayikra Yud Gimel Mem Zayin. If you have the pasukim in your Gemara, it says it on the side. V'habeged ki yihye bo negat tzaraat bebeged semer or bebeged pishtim. Okay, and there it says the beged could either be semer or fishtim. So now we say ma lahalan semer ufishtim, I've called semer ufishtim. So what does he say? When he talks about laws of susceptibility to impurities, and it says beged, if beged is susceptible to impurity, it must be talking about only semer and fishtim. Now, if that's the case, then go back to what Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said. He said the exact same thing. He said anything that comes out of a tree, which means he's not talking about semer, he's only talking about linen. So he says, right, all those don't have laws of susceptibility to impurities other than pishtan. So there you have it. They say the exact same thing. Okay, now according to this interpretation, any cloth you have, any size that's made of any other material other than linen, is not right, that comes from a tree, is not going to be susceptible to impurities. Okay, that's Abaye's approach, right, any size. But Rava disagrees with Abaye, shocking, right? He always disagrees with him. Rava, or almost always, Rava mar shlosha b'shar b'gadim ika benayu. It's true that 3 by 3 fingers breadths wouldn't, finger length or finger width, wouldn't become susceptible to impurity if it's not linen, only linen. But other materials, once you get to a larger size and you're already into 3 by 3 tefachim, then already other materials will be susceptible to impurities. Okay? So he basically disagrees on that point. Okay. So now we're going to say, so shlosha b'shar b'gadim ika beinayu. That's the difference, meaning Abaye said from the beginning, these two opinions are one and the same. He says, no. They disagree about that point. To Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, itlei, he thinks they are susceptible to impurities at the larger 3 by 3 tefachim size. And the Tana Debei Rabbi Yishmael, lately, but the Tana Debei Rabbi Yishmael says no. It's only semer ufishtim. It's not any other material because he learns it out from those words, semer ufishtim. So now, okay, so that's the basic machloket Rav and Abaye. Rav and Abaye disagree, again, just to make it very clear. They disagree about, do we say at 3 by 3 tefachim and another type of material of cloth will become susceptible to impurities or not? That's their debate, okay? Is there never impurity in those items? Or could they be impure, something that comes from a tree and you make material out of it? Could it become impure at a larger size and just not at the 3 by 3 size? Okay, so now we're going to talk about Dekule Alma. We're going to go and talk about this idea a little bit more. Dekule Alma Miha. Everyone at least agrees though. Shalosh al shalosh b'tzemer ufishtim mitame b'negaim, right? Everybody agrees that when it comes to for sure tzarad and really anything else, 3 by 3 etzbaot, the small size, is going to be impure for tzemer and fishim. That's agreed upon so far by everybody we saw. So now they want to know minala. Where do we exactly get this from in the pasuk? In other words, where do we get this 3 by 3 size? The pasuk did say beged is tzemer and fishim for negaim, for right negaim is tzara, leprosy, but it doesn't say anywhere about this 3 by 3 size. So now they say Tanya. It says in the Braita, beged ein li ela beged. Okay, from the word beged, this is a midrash halacha, or it has the style of a midrash halacha, where we start with the word in the pasuk, and then we kind of question and try to learn from there. From the word beged, so the word beged says, we would learn ein li ela beged. Okay, it sounds like, what do you need? An actual piece of clothing, right? Or a piece of cloth that's significant. Shalosh al shalosh minayim, but where are we going to get shalosh al shalosh, right? Where is that going to come from? So they say, Talmud Lamar, v'habeged. Okay, the pasuk started out, I'll read you the pasuk again. V'habeged ki yabonegat tzara bebeged semro bebeged pishim. Now, why does it say v'ha? Okay, and the, what does that come to add? It just could have said, beged ki negat tzaraat, and then it says whether it's pishim or sem. So they're going to say from the word, the two letters, v'ha and the, we're going to learn that it includes shalosh al shalosh, even a small shiur of shalosh al shalosh. So now the Gemara says, wait, ve'ema, why don't we say veha? It's now going to be one of these classic drashot of why are you going to say it includes that and not that? Ve'ema lirabot shlosha al shlosha. Maybe it's coming to teach you a beged that's 3 by 3 tfachim and not 3 by 3 etzbaot. Maybe a more serious beged. Again, when you think of beged, you think of a shirt, right? You don't think of a piece of cloth that's 3 by 3 tfachim. So maybe it's coming to include 3 by 3 tfachim. That makes sense. And not 3 by 3 etzbaot. So they say no. Love kal v'chomer. Who isn't that a kal v'chomer? Where are you going to learn a kal v'chomer to a piece of cloth 3 by 3 tfachim? So they're going to say it's like this. The 3 by 3 tfachim, the bigger size, we're going to learn from a kal v'chomer. And therefore, we're going to learn veha to come teach us 3 by 3, the small size. So where do we get a kal v'chomer? Hashda shti v'arev mitame, shlosha mibaya. Okay, another pasuk there by Tzarat. Okay, it's also quoted in the Torah or in about 12 pasukim later in that parak. It says, Zot Torah negat tzarad, beged hatzemer o hafishtin. Notice it says again, semer o fishtin, o hashti, o ha'erev. Okay, what's that? That's the warp and the woof, right? Now, if you have, that's how people would weave, right? The warp and the woof. So now, if you have a string that's ready for using on the loom, okay, one shti and one erev, those two can be makabel tuma because they're already ready to be sewn, okay? So you're ready to weave them, therefore they're prepared, they're serious, they're significant, they can be makabel tuma. Well, if just a mere string that's ready to be used can be susceptible to impurity, then all the more so a piece of cloth. Okay, I see someone wrote Julie wrote, what about thinking of a quilting square, right? A piece of cloth that can also be used for something. So all the more so, that should obviously be tameh. And therefore, you can't learn shlosha al shlosha from the viha. And therefore, it's basically what we call free in the world of drashot. We can learn from viha to 3 by 3 etzbaot to the mini cloth. Okay, so again, this was all the way of saying, where do we learn 3 by 3? We learn it from viha beged. The fact that it says viha comes to include that. Question, why didn't it include something else, this bigger cloth? Because that can be learned out from the kal v'chomer, from the shti v'arev. So now they say, wait, if you have just a string, the shti and the arev is going to be, the warp and the woof is going to be tameh, then hihachi shalosh shalosh nami le'te b'kal v'chomer. Then theoretically, you can also learn out from a kal v'chomer, and you don't need the drasha veha to teach you 3 by 3. Maybe we should learn it from there. So Ella, what do they say? No. Shlosha dechazu bein la'ashirim bein la'aniyim, and this is what I told you already, why we get these different shiurim. 3 by 3 can be used by rich or by poor. They already use this 3 by 3 tvachim. And therefore, that ate b'kal v'chomer, it's significant, and we can learn it then from these strings. But shalosh la'aniyim dechazian la'ashirim lo chazian lo ate b'kal v'chomer. Theoretically, a string is more significant than something that's 3 by 3. And it goes back to what I was saying about Pesach cleaning, right? Spring cleaning, you're going to dump that in the garbage. That's not worth anything. But a string that you're about to use to weave is actually significant. So therefore, since a rich person would just throw out a little teeny piece of cloth that's 3 by 3 fingers, then clearly that's not going to be susceptible to impurity. Again, you would think it wouldn't be, and therefore you wouldn't learn it from a kal v'chomer, from the strings. And therefore, we're back to, where do we learn it? We do learn it, though, since it is worthy for aniyim, it will be susceptible to impurities. And then, by the way, it's susceptible to impurities for anybody. And that's learned out not from a kal v'chomer, but from the drasha viha, in the viha beged. Okay, so now, therefore, we say, right, lo ati b'kal v'chomer, you can't learn it, therefore. Okay, so now they say, here's what I call a mishpat mesakem, summary sentence. Therefore, tama de katvei kra. The whole reason we learned the 3 by 3 etzbaot, this teeny little piece of cloth is going to be susceptible to impurities, is because the pasuk said veha, ha lo katvei kra. But if you didn't have the pasuk, again, they're kind of repeating something which we've already said a few times, lo gamrina b'kal v'chomer. You wouldn't be able to learn this out from a kal v'chomer. But now they say, okay, so that basically means, what are we left with? We don't have a kal v'chomer to learn it, but we have the letters veha, those 2 letters. So now they say, maybe those 2 letters are coming to teach something else. what is it coming to teach? And this is something we mentioned at the very beginning of this, the Amud, which is on this side of the page. What is it coming to say? Maybe it's coming to teach you that while shlosha tvachim is the size that we generally talk about, again, we're trying to say maybe we don't learn about the etzbaot. That's like a size of, let's say, a quilting square or something of significance that a wealthy person would use. The pasuk says it's only pishtim or tzemer. Maybe the viha is coming to include other types of cloth would also be impure at 3 by 3 tvachim, which is actually what Rava said. Remember, that was the whole machloket Abaye and Rava in the beginning of this side of the page, are other materials, are they susceptible to impurities at a larger size, or are they not? So maybe the viha is coming to address that question. Shlosha b'shar b'gadim. So what do they say? No, because Amar Kra, beged semer ufishtim, which comes to say no. In other words, if you just have the words beha beged, you could say that's an inclusive term. But later on in the verse, it says very specifically, beged semer o beged pishtim, which sounds like just that material, not anything else. So it sounds like beged semer ufishtim in midei achrini lo. That just that would be included, but not anything else. So then they say no. You could say ve'ema ki imut mishalosh al shalosh aval shlosha al shlosha mitame. So now they say no. Again, what could you say? I'll start with the second part of the pasuk. The second part of the pasuk said, or let's start from the beginning. It starts off ve'habeged, which comes to be, right, that's a generalization. It sounds like any beged. Then later on in the verse, it says beged semer o beged pishtim. So maybe it's coming to say ve'habeged is any beged, and that will be at a large size, will become impure. But when it then limits semer pishtim, maybe that is that's the only type that's going to be impure at the very small size of 3 by 3. But right, the ve'habeged at the beginning maybe is coming to say any other materials though will be at a larger size. That will actually match what Rava said. So now they're suggesting maybe it says that. By the way, the whole mahalach right now is really according to Abaye, who doesn't think that. So what did they answer? Now there's two exclusions at the end. When it says later in the pasuk, beged semer upishtim, it's actually being very exclusive, really saying just these materials, not any other materials. How do we see that? Because it says, bebeged semer o bebeged pishtim. Notice the word beged is repeated, right? An easier way to say it would just be beged semer o pishtim. But because it says beged semer o bebeged pishtim, and it says beged twice, it means to say just these begadim, not any other materials. So again, we're left with chad miyute mishalosh al shalosh, v'chad miyute mishlosha al shlosha. So now we're saying the beginning of the verse is coming to tell you ve'habeged, and to say shalosh al shalosh by right semer and pishtim is tamei, and not coming to include other begadim at shlosha al shlosha. And what are they coming to say at the end of the pasuk? Well, it's just semer and just pishtim, meaning you don't have the din of 3 by 3 etzbaot by anything else, and you don't have the din of 3 by 3 tvachim by anything else. And therefore, again, the veha is free to say 3 by 3. That little shiur comes to be included from the letters veha. So now they say ule Rava. Now this is all very good according to Abaye, because Abaye, that's his approach. His approach, if you remember, we started at the beginning of the Amud and we said Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar and Jana de Rabbi Yishmael all say the same thing. They both think that there's absolutely no choma at all, at any size, in other materials, only tzemer and pishtim. But the Rava, Da'amar, Shlosha b'shar b'gadim ika benayu, he thinks, in fact, this halacha we keep mentioning, maybe other cloths at the size of 3 by 3 tvachim, the bigger size, maybe they're actually also impure, or they are, according to him. So where is he going to learn that from, right? L'rashba itle, detana de Rabbi Yishmael leitle, right? He says that's the machloket. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says that's at least according to Rava, according to the way Rava reads Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar does hold by that halacha. Tan de Rabbi Yishmael doesn't have that halacha. But shlosha b'shar b'gadim minale. Where is he going to learn the shlosha? Because we don't leave him any room in the pasuk. We already darshaned everything, and we already darshaned that it's dafka excluding 3 by 3 in any other material. So where are we going to learn that from? I'm going to unfortunately leave you in suspense, and we'll see tomorrow because that's already on Daf Kaf Zayin. So we'll pick up from here tomorrow, and then we'll learn where we get it from.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shel.